Let me remove this. Now, to install your Redis, the first thing you will need to do is to install WSL. Install WSL on Windows. You could also go to Microsoft Store. To install WSL, and you search it here, WSL. Right, so you can see here, you go ahead and install Canonical Group. So you go ahead and install. After you've installed it, you'll be able to work with WSL in your Windows. WSL is Windows, I think several Linux, it's a Linux distribution for Windows. As Windows subsystem for Linux. That's the meaning of WSL. Now, having installed WSL, the next thing is to actually install your Redis server. So you're literally going to have to open, after installation, you have within your sessions, your terminal, WSL. So you can see here, have Ubuntu, which is my WSL actually, or you can run WSL to open the dedicated server. So this is what you expect to have. Right, so after you've done that, the next thing is to install your Redis server. So you do this sudo apt update. Then from there, sudo apt update install Redis server. This will install Redis server to your Windows, your WSL, and will help us utilize it. Now, your Windows subsystem for Linux is more like a subsystem that helps you do some Linux operations in your Windows laptop. However, you realize that this terminal and this terminal are quite different. They are basically operating from different environments. So for us to effectively work with this and have our Redis server running, we actually need to do some alterations. Either we literally run this project. You can see we're in a Django mastery course. We can decide to create a virtual environment within this WSL. So should we do that, or we can actually decide that, all right, um, let's configure our windows to actually work with this. So, but let's see. Let's attempt the first I talked about. If you want to use your Windows, you can literally have this. After you've installed, the next thing should be open this. Then after you've opened that, you should copy this into the file. This is to help you change the networking of your WSL to your Windows. Right, so I would also want to have this. Let's try this. So first we want to activate our virtual environment from here. So we have Python mv. Remember this. Then you have let's say .linux, because we already have a folder. All right, so this is literally having to work with Python 3. So this created bin source bin activate. You are having an error here. You may need to use sudo after installation of failing command. Okay, we're having some sort of problems, but okay, let's eventually work with this, right? But if you're working with a Linux laptop, you can, of course, you already have your virtual environment. But for this, you can literally use apt install and install this and follow this guide to get that done. I'll prefer to continue with Windows, so just remove this. Just that we have some little limitation working with Windows in this case. Right. So I'm going to delete this. Okay, I'll just leave this. All right, have that deleted. Right to plus should be removed. Right, so we continue going to after installing that in your Redis server, you would want to open your Ubuntu. So the next thing is to actually activate this if you've not activated. And from there, we would want to do something. So keep this running. Then the next procedure is to do some little configuration to allow your WSL network with your Windows configuration. So this opens a file like this. You put this inside your file. Now, but the downside to this is that it takes quite some time, about 20 seconds to 1 minute, to have a Celery communicate to our broker because of this networking alteration. But this is just to help get us see this working in deployment, or if you're using a Linux laptop, you're in a better situation to handle this appropriately, or maybe other workarounds, right? So, but my intention is to have you see this right now. So we've had everything set up. Let's run our app. Before then, we've set up our Celery. So we've set up our Celery. Right. So the thing we intend to do is to send an email. We're going to attempt to send an email without having it wait for a full email to send. Now we're going to create a file and name it task. So we're going to have a file and then we name it task, right? So this task, we want to have create a function, send email task, right? So we're going to call, let's say, message. We'll just have the message in. We'll just need to collect the username and then the email we're sending to. Try to remove this. Then we have a message, just need something simple. Hi, thank you for registering on our site. And that's our message. Then subject, let's have a subject to be hello. Let's have a subject to be so, right. We're going to have a subject to be email sending for registration, right? Then from there, we're going to call Django send mail, right? So we import this Django return email was sent successfully. Now Django send mail takes in the subject, takes in the message, then it takes in the email we're sending from. So call it settings the default from email. So we have our settings imported from our Django that's Django configuration. So we expect, okay, I would like to also add fail silently false so that we can see any error that occurs. So with this, we have to make it actually asynchronous, we have to define shared task. So this tells Django that, okay, you're going to discover this when you're discovering your asynchronous task.